Okay, everyone, it has been quite some time since I've done one of these, so bear with me. I get my presentation legs back on. So this is an RBT PDU series. We are 6 months behind, so I apologize, everyone. The last one that we did was in January or February, and we talked about what is Assent, what does it look like, how do we manage whenever we're not really gaining what we want. But today we're going to talk about gaining Assent. So essentially what we're going to be looking at is how to establish getting our learners, for lack of a better word, to comply with the demands or the directives that are something that maybe they have to do or that they need to do. This goes beyond, let's say that you are having them sit at a table or identifying letters and they're clearly withdrawing their assent from identifying something like that. This is more of one of those health and safety boundaries. Brushing teeth, going to the bathroom, cleaning up after themselves, things along that nature. Homework is one that I find a lot of times is why parents bring us in, right? They just refuse to do homework. Well, let's see what we can do to gain assent. We're not going to be discussing so much assent withdrawal today as how to prevent the assent withdrawal from happening. We did talk a little bit about assent withdrawal in our last PDU, so please check that one out if you haven't already. Assent and assent withdrawal will be something that we constantly are talking about. So this will be a common theme throughout the PDU series. And pause just 1 second. Okay, perfect. It was a neighborly mom. So I needed to make sure my children are okay. They are. Everything's fine. Okay, so let's get right on into it. So again, today we are going to review our last PDU really quickly. And that was where we really talked about what was assent withdrawal, what does it look like, and how do we manage it whenever that happens. So a few of the things that we talked about were really looking at the data and recognizing that if we are taking data like good behavior technicians, we are essentially still doing our job per insurance standards, right? So for example, let's say that you have a demand for them to put an item in the box to help clean up. They're walking away from you. So you're going to mark that essentially as, does it meet the topography of protest or refusal or noncompliance, right? However your BCBA has defined it. And then what are you going to do to gain that? You're going to reduce the response effort. You're going to bring the bucket over to them. You might even prevent yourself from being in this situation where I'm here, the learner's here, and the door is there. Instead, I'm going to put myself closer to the door so that I'm not necessarily physically blocking, but I am a physical presence that makes it more difficult, increases that response effort to leave so that I can reduce the response effort by getting them to put the items in the bucket. And again, you're going to use that data to help support whatever it was that you were doing so that you're not then using physical hand over hand manipulation to get your kids to comply or to get the learners to comply. They're not your kids. Sometimes they're mine, but okay. So today we're going to talk, well, we just did this review, but today we reviewed what assent withdrawal is. We're going to talk a little bit about what assent is, not just assent withdrawal. We're going to talk about how to prevent it, areas where that assent withdrawal is essentially a non-negotiable. And then we're going to talk briefly about what to do whenever that withdrawal happens, kind of like what we just did, but we'll go into a little bit more depth. So first of all, what is assent? It's a willingness to participate in ABA. For today's purposes and for you as an RBT, it's for ABA, right? Like we aren't interacting with these people in dual relationships. So this is for them to participate in whatever it is that you're doing with them. It is a willingness to comply with the demand. Are they willing to put the item in the bucket? Are they complying with that demand? It's nonverbal. So it's what they're doing with their body. It's not necessarily something that they're verbally saying because that's consent. So if you say, and I know many of you have this in your 40-hour training, do you want to do this? And they say no, well, they're not consenting, right? But if instead I say, do you want to do this or this? I am giving them that choice to consent, and they don't necessarily have to verbally say anything to select that thing. Let's say they select it without actually saying anything. Yes, this is the one I want to do. Well, then it's assent because there's no verbal agreement. The other thing too that we talk about with consent versus assent, consent typically has to happen with somebody who is over the age of 18. Here in Colorado, it's 12, which is really interesting. But other states have their own consent laws, but that's essentially it. So we're really looking at assent, not consent. Now, the other thing that we look at whenever we see assent withdrawal is that it's typically when we're going to see one of those problem behaviors, maladaptive behaviors, target behaviors, any of those things that are identified as why we're doing what we're doing per insurance's standards, right? So refusal, noncompliance, protest, tantrum, aggression, avoidance, whatever it might be, and however it's operationally defined, it's usually demonstrating some sort of assent withdrawal within that operational definition. Cool. So assent withdrawal is when a learner non-verbally does not initiate with a demand or is no longer willing to comply with those demands. So we've seen this, right, across ages, across skill levels. They're in the middle of doing something and suddenly they stop. They withdraw their assent. Or I've got a little kiddo who I love him to death, but it never fails. Once he reaches that ratio strain, he starts to engage in laughing behaviors, really silly behaviors. It's kind of funny, in all honesty. It makes it really difficult to target because I want to giggle along with him. We've all found ourselves in that situation, right? Or it can be kind of frustrating because he might start to engage in some property destruction, and it's mild, but he's looking for the escape from that demand as well as attention, right? We find that the function of the behavior isn't always escape whenever we're looking at assent withdrawal. Sometimes it's access to tangibles. Sometimes it's like, I don't want to do this right now. I want mom's phone. I don't want to do this right now. I want your attention, or brother's attention, or mom's attention, or grandmother's attention, whoever's in the house, or my preferred BCBA's attention if they're in the clinic, right? So again, when we're looking at assent withdrawal, we don't always need to understand, we can't always assume that the function of that behavior is escape. Yes, there is an escape component, which is why Greg Hanley often says that we usually don't just escape. I sometimes do, but we often escape to something else. So escape to tangible, escape to attention, escape to sensory seek, right? However, there are some learners who legitimately would just be like, good, just not doing this. And that's me. No, I'm kidding. I think that's actually a lot of us, especially on a Friday night at 6 o'clock. You're like, man, good. I don't need to do anything else anymore. So assent withdrawal, we also need to look at that function. How can we help keep that motivation going by embedding a function-based non-contingent reinforcement? And we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. So I think a lot of times we get to this. We place the demand, the learner withdraws their assent, and we're like, all right, well, they didn't want to do it today, so I'm just going to not try to run a trial for this. And it reinforces our avoidant behavior then, in all honesty, when we do those things. So assent withdrawal isn't necessarily saying, okay, this is the end. I don't need to run this trial anymore. I've tried. They didn't want to do it, so we're not going to do it. No, it's actually a signal that you need to do something else and represent that SD in a more meaningful and enriched way. So we're going to talk about what those things are. So again, we've got these refusal behaviors happening. How are we going to then get that learner to engage rather than engage in refusal behaviors? It happens. It happens a lot. I was just in a session this afternoon where the learner withdrew their assent from the demand that OT was placing for them. But it was also because we had just denied access to playing with water guns. A, because it was storming outside. B, because I didn't want to get wet and my RBT didn't want to get wet. So we were like, no, we can choose something else. And then OT came in and started placing demands. So of course we saw assent withdrawal. We were already in challenging behavior because of denied access. Then we compounded that by adding a demand. How did we work through that? Well, I talked with the OT and I was like, hey, we're trying to get him involved in a different activity. So she was like, fantastic. Let's make sure it's an activity that we know that he likes, that we can also say is a fine motor skill, following directions, executive functioning, right? So it can follow along with that OT's programming as well. And I was like, on it, boss. So I pulled out 3 different Lego sets for him to do. He chose the race car one. Then mom came and sat down with him to help build this Lego set. So he was getting that non-contingent attention from mom that he typically doesn't get. He was also getting non-contingent attention from the RBT. I was more so working with the OT, but once he started to engage with the Lego set is when I started to provide that attention. So mine was a more contingent attention. Theirs was more non-contingent, right? So again, we're working on this fine motor skill. We're working at executive functioning, following directions. We have just gained assent to the demand that OT was placing while embedding child-led interests and still getting accomplished what needed to be accomplished and out of refusal behaviors and protest behaviors from the denial of a water gun fight when it was storming outside. So just a real life example. And that's really kind of my goal with this PDU series, is to give you all lots of real life examples. So first things first, we know the best way to prevent a problem behavior from happening is to use antecedent strategies. So these are 4 really common ones. Offer choices. When I offer choices, I typically, if I don't know the learner very well, I'm going to do preferred to preferred. If I do know the learner pretty well, I might do more neutral to non-preferred. And if I've been working with this guy forever, or I know that this is a have to, I'm going to present a non-preferred and a non-preferred. So for example, preferred to preferred, do you want to play cars or bubbles? Neutral to non-preferred, do you want to play a card game with me? Or do you want to brush your teeth? Non-preferred to non-preferred, do you want to brush your teeth or do you want to clean up your toys? Either way, we're giving that control within the session, which actually does, A, work on a skill, because choice making is a skill, but B, we're also then gaining that assent to those non-preferred demands. Cool. Behavioral momentum. This is an old school strategy. So when we're doing behavioral momentum, it's not do this, do this, do this. No, it's using something that's within the learner's repertoire. So for example, if the demand ultimately for that parent for that night is to get their homework done, cool. I might start with 1-minute fluencies or 30-second fluencies of addition facts or subtraction facts or multiplication facts. Then I might say, okay, awesome. You did really great with that. Now we're going to do some money skills. Money's like tangible. People really like playing with money for some reason. So I might lay out a few bills, and I'm looking over because I almost always have pretend money with me. So I'm going to say, okay, how much is this one? Awesome. 20, 10, 5. How much is that together? Let's count it up together, right? 5 plus 10 is 15. Plus 20. Awesome. We have $35. You're exactly right, right? So I'm building up that behavioral momentum so that when I place that worksheet down in front of them, They're like, all right, well, I guess I'm already in a mindset of doing math, so I might as well do this, right? It's a little bit easier. And I'm keeping those things short and brief. 30-second fluencies, a minute fluency. I'm not saying let's do one easy worksheet and then a harder worksheet. Girl, no. Boy, no. Y'all know. If they've already done a worksheet, they're not then going to assent to doing another worksheet. Keep the behavioral momentum brief so that you're making sure that it's something that's going to lead into something that might be a little bit longer and hopefully gain some of that assent. Okay, y'all, this next one, schedule. This is actually very trauma informed. This is something that I believe strongly in, which is providing trauma informed practices. My hope is that y'all are also hoping to provide trauma informed practices. Schedules and routines are trauma informed. Here's why. When we are placing unknown expectations onto kids who've experienced adverse childhood events, we are essentially setting ourselves up as pairing ourselves with triggers, meltdowns, unexplained behaviors. And that's because it's unknown, it's unexpected. Most adverse events were unknown and unexpected. Think about people who get scared whenever there's a lightning storm, when there's a thunderstorm. It's because it's unexpected. One of the very first things that I did, one of my adverse childhood events from growing up is I watched my dad get struck by lightning. It was a terrifying experience for me. So what I learned very, very quickly, because I grew up in Texas and we're in Colorado now, there are a lot of storms. Most of us live in a climate where storms will happen. Unless you're in Los Angeles, very rarely did I experience storms when I lived there, but that's okay. I learned how to count between the lightning strike and the thunder to determine how far away the storm was. It's not 100% accurate, but it's accurate enough to give you time and space to expect when it's going to be getting closer or when it's moving further away. So let's say that you see a lightning strike, you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, thunder rolls, it's 5 miles away. Start counting again the next lightning strike. 1, 2, 3, it's 3 miles away. It's getting closer. So now I'm going to anticipate that lightning is going to happen more frequently. Thunder is going to happen more frequently, right? But then it starts moving away and I can start anticipating that as well. So it's the same reason why when we're experiencing or we're working with children with adverse childhood events, that we want to embed some sort of schedule, some sort of routine so that they know what to expect, when to expect it. I've often worked in with families too, where they're like, well, they'll tell me when they're hungry. No, mom, they are not going to tell you when they're hungry. You are going to know whenever they are hangry, the wheels are off, and everybody's really, really pissed in the house. And then you're gonna be like, I don't understand why they didn't tell me they were hungry. Well, they were hungry 30 minutes ago. And that's actually when you should have prepared the lunch for them because it was 11:45. And now we're at 1:40 or now we're at 12:30 and they're hangry and you're trying to get a meal prepared for them and the wheels are completely off. Property destruction's happening, siblings are hitting each other, right? And it's 100% because you waited too long. Had you said, hey, lunch is going to be at 11:30, like it is every day, somewhere between 11:30 and 11:45, okay? Just know that that's what I'm going to have lunch ready for you. Cool, mom. I'm not going to be hungry then. Okay. It's available for you though, because that's when it's going to be made. All right. And then I put in like a little old school thing. Most of these things are actually old school, if we're being perfectly honest. These are all in Cooper, right? These are all things that are part of your 40-hour training. We're just breaking it down a little bit to give you more of a why as to why we would do these things. So the PREMAC principle, first fin, y'all, it works. I use it with my own kids. I use it with learners. First, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. The difference is that often in some more rigid ABA settings, it's robotic how we say it. First, then, right? That good old SD voice. No, we're going to keep it nice and chill, nice and neutral, realistic. Hey, first we're going to brush our teeth and then we're going to play some video games. Cool. Awesome. Not first teeth, then video or games, whatever, keeping it simple, clear as kind. Transition warnings. Transition warnings also work. I use them with my kids. Hey, kids, in 30 minutes, I need you to get your shoes on because we're going to go outside. Hey, kids, 5 more minutes, and then we're going to do this. Hey, kids, it's time for us to do that thing that I told you about 30 minutes ago and now 5 minutes ago. Okay. Sometimes I might still get like, what? You didn't tell me. And I'm like, I'm 100% did. Definitely told you that this was going to happen. And usually that's really difficult to not accept. You can't refute that, especially whenever the sibling's saying, yeah, she did. Might be begrudgingly, but it'll still get where we need to go. And then also establish that motivating operation. I don't often use the phrase, what do you want to work for? But I will often say, do you want to come back to this? Or do you want to do something else? We could play that really fun game that you wanted to play. Does that work for you? Do you want to do a water balloon fight? Cool. Let's do it. First, we're going to do this. Then we can do that water balloon fight. Cool. Okay. Make it child-led, y'all. Child-led is one of my, I love child-led, and I hate the way people are interpreting child-led. Hate's a strong word. I don't enjoy watching ABA whenever they say that it's child-led. I'm like, that's not child-led. That's permissive. Child-led is not permissive. It is using the kids' interests to gain assent. Getting to know what the learner loves and wants and pairing yourself with that. Operant conditioning with that. So it's not just letting the child do whatever they want. It's not waiting for them to engage with something. It's not saying, they didn't want to do it, so we're moving on. And I guess I'm just going to sit here and play with them today instead because they didn't want to brush their teeth. I tried my best, tried really, really hard. No, it is 100% saying, hey, we're going to do this right now, knowing that it's a preferred thing. Think back to my example with the kid where we had just denied access to a water gun fight. Then OT came in with a demand. Then we made it child-led. Legos. And I apologize if you hear some talking in the background. I got kids, so you might hear them. They might interrupt. That's life. So it's also just making sure that what we're doing is using those interests. If I don't have to deny access to something, I'm not going to. For example, if you have a learner who engages in high magnitude self-injurious headbanging, and their highest preferred reinforcer is watching YouTube videos, and it's on a tablet or a phone, and you need them to transition to the bathroom to brush their teeth, you better let them take that tablet or phone with them. You don't need to deny access to that simply to place a demand. Is it a barrier to their brushing their teeth if they're watching YouTube at the same time? No. Just like, is it a barrier for them to hold the phone while they're sitting on the toilet at the same time to go to the bathroom? No. Do you use your phone when you're on the toilet? Probably. So if you wouldn't deny access to yourself doing it, we're not going to deny access for the learners to do it if it's not a barrier. Here's a contradictory example here. Let's say they do need to do a math worksheet. Can they watch YouTube while doing a math worksheet? Probably not. Can they listen to preferred music sometimes? Sometimes. Or can they not? Maybe not. Do we need to break it down and have them do just a few so that they get a music or video break, then a few more and another music and video break? Possibly. That's going to be really up to the BCBA team and the RBT team to make this determination together for what is individualized for that learner and specific to that context. Hope that makes sense. However, again, it's not just, well, they didn't want to, so we're not going to. They didn't want to turn off their tablet, so I didn't have them go to the bathroom. So they're just sitting in a soiled pull-up. Does that sound good? Probably not, right? We do have to weigh those risks. If the risk of whatever might happen is greater than a rash, maybe, but it's usually not. Usually the rash and medical conditions, bigger issues. I've had a kid who we really had to work on wiping because they kept getting strep of the anus. Isn't that awful? But that kept happening because they weren't wiping thoroughly enough. So they couldn't hold on to their tablet or their phone while they were wiping. So we set it on the counter, encouraged them to wipe, and then they could, after they washed their hands, gain access again. Okay. So child-led, yeses. What is child-led? It's incorporating their interest. It's allowing things to be fun. It's using that kid's skill set. I often hate when I look at programs, and again, I'm using that strong word. I don't like when I look at programs and it's 100% not something that is developmentally appropriate for that child. That happens all the time. I once had a caregiver say, I don't understand why my 4-year-old's not tying their shoes yet. It's not developmentally appropriate. I don't understand why my preteen or teenager is talking back to me. It's because it's developmentally appropriate. I really don't like that my 3-year-old tantrums. It's developmentally appropriate, right? So there are some things that we have to look at that are developmentally appropriate or are not developmentally appropriate. So if it's something that is developmentally appropriate for that child, and again, individualized, use it. Use what they know to build upon. That's what shaping is all about, is using the things and the skills that they have in their repertoire to build upon, so that then you're just scaffolding up until they get to that terminal skill, rather than trying to jump from here to the terminal skill, right? Okay. So I love using pretend play with demand. So when I'm like furthering what child-led means, it means that I might play music for them. I might incorporate a dance party as we're cleaning up. One of my favorite things to do is I have a learner who absolutely loves intense pretend play, and I love it. It's so cool. She's very theatrical, very dramatic. She always likes to be somebody in the scenario to be the bad guy. So I will often insert myself as the evil stepmother. And I will say, as your evil stepmother, I am commanding you to put this dress away. Okay, evil stepmother. And then she picks it up and puts it where it needs to go. Or I might say, oh my gosh, this can has to be thrown into the trash because it is a force field that is causing our powers to weaken. Oh, yes. And then she throws it away, right? Incorporate pretend play if that's something that's in your learner's wheelhouse. Even if it's not, it doesn't mean you can't be dramatic and fun with it. And we were talking again about enriching the environment. So a lot of times, like, people assume, well, I can't figure out what the child likes to do. Well, you're just sitting in a blank room. And yeah, there are toys around you, but unless you're showing the learner how to play with those toys, they probably don't care. Unless you're showing that you want to play with them, they probably don't want to engage. So it's really important that what we do is enrich the environment with things that we know are preferred or can assume that are preferred, or things that are currently and readily available in that environment, right? Already in this very small space that I'm working in, I've pulled up pretend money, a box, and a soda can. And somehow I was able to make those also enriching, right? And that's okay. So we're creating those moments to allow for engagement to happen. That's then how, if we look at SBT, which we're going to get into just briefly here in just a second, that's how we establish happy, relaxed, and engaged, so that then we can move into, okay, we're all done with this. Okay, not this time. No problem. Okay. Right? So again, we're really trying to focus on how to enrich the environment, how to engage the learner, and what are we doing to model these behaviors that we want to see. Cool. Okay, so we're running a couple of programs now. The demand is to brush teeth. We're going to provide a transition warning. Hey, in 5 more minutes, we're going to go brush teeth. Cool. I'm going to play our Miss Rachel brush teeth song that I know that we love while we're doing it, just so you know. Afterwards, we can play Don't Break the Ice together, because I know you really like that one. Do you want to do Don't Break the Ice? Or do you want to do The Floor is Lava? The Floor is Lava? Perfect, no problem. Okay, cool. My timer just went off. 5 minutes has gone by. I've got my Miss Rachel song ready to go. Let's go together to go brush teeth. Now I'm going to stand up and I'm going to walk to the location where the bathroom is, where the brushing teeth area is. The reason that I'm going to do that is that if I'm just sitting here, go brush your teeth, they're also just going to sit there. They're not going to assent to that demand. You're not showing that you're willing to assent to the demand. So get up off your butt, walk over there, model, at least moving in the right direction to get them to do these things, okay? Same with this next demand. Time to go to the bathroom. So I have that for our antecedent strategy, we're going to use SBT. Notice how I keep clapping my hands when I say that. So SBT is skills-based training. It is something that Dr. Greg Hanley established with his whole team. I have found it to be one of the most effective ways to get learners to assent. However, it takes time to get them to assent. And what I mean by that is that I can't just say, okay, it's time to go do this, and then expect them to do it at that time. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes, okay? They're playing, they're engaging with you. Hey, we're all done with this. More time. Cool. My way. Yeah, cool. Thanks for letting me know. We can have your way. I'm going to set my timer for 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll try again. Okay, now it's time. We're all done with this. More time. Not this time. Okay. Hey, I'll give you a couple more minutes because you said okay. Thank you. So I've reinforced the mand for more time, the omnibus mand. Now I'm reinforcing the tolerance response of okay. Next time, though. All right, man, we're all done with this. It's time for us to go to the bathroom. More time. Not this time. Okay. All right, awesome. Let's go. And again, stand it up, walking into the direction of where we're going to be going. Do you want to watch the video that you're still watching? We don't have to give that up while we're on the toilet. Yeah, carry it with you, or I'll carry it for you. I've made the mistake of letting people carry it sometimes, and then it ends up in the toilet. So I'm just trying to prevent y'all from experiencing some of the things that I've experienced in my time. Yeah, we can watch this super truck video while you go to the bathroom. Awesome. And then, especially if you're working on toileting, I say reserved reinforcer. What I mean by reserved reinforcer is that's the reinforcer that they only get for this particular demand. So for one of my kids, they only got access to a bucket full of Matchbox cars after they went to the bathroom. For another one of my kids, they only got tickles on their feet for going to the bathroom. For another one of my learners, they only got M&Ms or candy for going to the bathroom. So again, that reserved reinforcer, the reinforcer that says, this is the demand that I know is paired with this highly preferred thing. Cool. Hey, clean your room. Go clean your room. You think you're going to get some compliance? What if you just restated that demand over and over and over again? Clean your room. Clean your room. Now you're avoiding eye contact. Clean your room. Pick it up. You can tell that I've been in ABA for a long time. I've heard this a lot. So how likely is somebody going to do that with escape extinction? Not very likely, right? So here's what I would suggest. Hey, first clean up this section of your room, then we can do some more pretend play, or we can pretend to be aliens, right? Reduce the response effort. Play with them. Do what I was talking about earlier, where you're pretending to be the evil stepmother, or if I don't throw this away, we're going to be sucked into an evil force field, or the dragons will come out, right? All of those things are ways to gain compliance that's child-led without pick it up, put it in the box, clean your room. Meanwhile, the child's just like screaming and crying and full on tantruming, and you're just stoic, neutral, robotic. You don't have to do that. You can be fun and engaging and still gain assent. That's what this whole PDU is about. All right. This one is one that happens in all of these. Well, I don't have to worry about brushing teeth or go to the bathroom anymore because lo and behold, if you are consistent, it becomes something that your kids just do. So like, I don't have to tell my kids to go to the bathroom. I mean, I might if I say, hey, we're about to go somewhere and we're not going to have access to a bathroom for a long time, go try. But brushing teeth, like, no, like they get out of the bath and they're like, I brushed my teeth. Cool, done. Right? It's because it's been consistently done for a long time. Consistently, I've asked that my kids clean up after themselves. So now they typically clean up after themselves unless a friend is over. It's really the only time that I've noticed that they don't clean up after themselves. My son picks up his room in the morning and puts all his laundry in his laundry basket and then makes his bed. Whoa, no, he's not some amazingly gifted child. He is. However, it's not because he's different than any other kid. It's because I've consistently placed these expectations. I've consistently reinforced it with praise. And it works. Right? So these are things that if we're consistent with, we will notice that they start to happen on their own, from their own free will, for just, hey, great job. Thank you for doing that. Cool. I mean, today I asked my daughter, I said, do you want to earn some money and unload the dishwasher? No. And then I was like, cool. You realize that you still want one of those little dumplings, right? You know, the dumpling squishies that every kid wants right now? Okay. And I was like, you just have to unload the dishwasher 3 times this week and we can get it. Okay. Cool. I can do that. Sweet. So she unloaded the dishwasher. 1 time marked off. So this is also an example of a token economy, right? Because I marked off 1 time, then she's got 2 more times to do, and then she'll get her dumpling. Little does she know that I've already ordered the dumpling and it's just sitting here waiting to give to her. Here we are. Okay, so time for homework. Y'all, it's summertime here. It's June 1st. My kids still do a math worksheet and 20 minutes of reading a day. I try to keep these, again, consistent expectations so that whenever the school year comes, it's not like, oh my God, my mother is torturing me. I can't believe that I'm having to do homework. So I do all of the above. I set the expectation. Don't forget, sometime before lunch, right? I'm giving this free choice. Sometime before lunch, I need you to do your math worksheet and 20 minutes of reading. Sometime before you go outside and play, I need you to do your 20 minutes of reading and math worksheet. Okay. I might also say, hey, lunch is in 20 minutes. Have you done your 20 minutes of reading yet? Cool. You've got time. Let's get it done. And then I'll let you know when lunch is ready. No, I don't withhold food for my children. However, it's just setting that expectation. Hey, first finish your math worksheet, then you can go outside and play with the neighbors. right? I might also let them have a preferred song playing whenever they're doing their math worksheet. Try to get it done before the song is over, right? I might also let them watch a more neutral show, like something like Wildcrats or something like that. Cool, you can watch this while you're doing it, but if it becomes a distraction, I'm going to use differential reinforcement and turn it off, right? You can watch what you want when you're finished. And then non-contingent attention. I'm going to praise them as they're doing it. Hey, awesome job. And then do you know what I do with their 20 minutes of reading? At dinner time, I just say, tell me something that you read about today. My daughter's reading Amelia Bedelia. She loves to tell me the things that she's doing that are hilarious. My son loves reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He loves telling me those things too. So again, child-led, right? I'm not saying you need to read War and Peace and you have to read a book about frogs and tell me everything that you've learned. No, it's choice. You can choose what it is that you're reading. And I still am going to follow up to make sure that you're comprehending what you're reading. It's consistent expectations. This is what ends up happening if we don't place consistent expectations, is that then kids literally have extinction burst because they don't understand why things are being denied and why demands are being placed. It's because it hasn't been consistently delivered that way. You can pair yourself with that consistency as one of the RBTs who's there every week, every day, every few days. At least I know every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whenever Miss Sheila's at the house, this is going to get done, right? Parents start to rely on that as well. Same if you're at the clinic. If I'm with this RBT, I know that I'm going to have to do this. If I'm with this RBT, I know that I'm going to have to do this. Fine, right? It's consistency. Cool. We're winding down, everyone. We're just going to quickly review some old school strategies that still work. Non-contingent attention and non-contingent reinforcement. Just gave examples of those. Praise throughout. Sit close to. Allow if you don't have to force that relinquishment. If you don't have to deny access, allow it. Embed it. Keep it going. First then, the pre-MAC principle. It's always going to work, y'all. Not always. Sorry. It works most of the time. Establish the MO. Determine what that learner wants for that reinforcement. Deliver it. Excuse me. Don't withhold it. If the expectations have been met, give it to them. Provide transition warnings. This also gives you time to prepare, gives you time to plan. Skills-based training. The reason I love this one, it combines functional communication training, tolerance response training, time delay, and full reinforcement, full synthesized reinforcement, attention with engagement, access to their most preferred tangible, and escape from the demand. SBT is that kind of like full package service deal. And it works. And I think Greg Hanley would also be upset if he heard me say this is an old school strategy. But y'all, it's been around now for 13 years. That's old school. We should all be using it. Cool. Next PDU is going to be on sibling interaction. We're going to discuss pivotal response training, which is PRT. This is how we use peers and siblings in the environment to help teach the skills we're looking to teach through delivering SDs, delivering prompts, and delivering reinforcement. It's basically creating little behavior technicians out of siblings and peers. So what is it? How does it help with sibling interactions? We're going to talk about it next time. And I don't know when next time's going to be. I'm going to do my best to try to record these as quickly as I possibly can to catch up, but TBD on that one. Okay, to get your PDU credit for this particular event, email me, Meg, at acrossenvironments.com, 3 takeaways, your RBT number, and the date that you watched this event. And just remember, right now, we're doing it completely donation-based. If you don't have any money to donate, email me. I don't have any money to donate. Cool. No worries. Still going to give you credit for it. Awesome. All right, everyone, take care and keep on learning. You're doing good stuff, doing hard stuff, and you deserve to be reinforced for doing the hard work. Thanks, y'all.